right on top of the reactor here at Hinkley Point.
You really can just walk on the reactor.
And you can see obviously all the 308 fuel channels.
These little squares.
That's right.
Are these warm?
So you can have a touch if you want.
You can touch?
Yeah.
It's not cold, it's not cold.
It's remarkable that you can stand on the very top of a nuclear reactor, so placid up here, above a furnace below, where the temperature reaches nearly 600 degrees. The radiation from the reactor itself is shielded by thick concrete walls.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please walk through.
Well, I've been checked. I'm not contaminated, which is a relief to me and the company that run the place. And it's a relief to them because they hope nuclear is going to be playing a very big part in Britain's energy future. The government has earmarked 9 sites for new nuclear power stations. Whatever you think about nuclear, build those and you'd have a huge investment boom. But politics is involved. Up on these hills, you can see Britain's most likely new nuclear power station, Hinkley Point C. It's still mostly a field. There's some activity, the site is being cleared while the wait for a decision goes on. But should it get the all clear, the scale of the operation will be enormous. It's been likened to putting the Olympics on in Somerset. 2 new reactors, more than £10 billion, taking years to complete. But it's the kind of investment that even the brashest Victorian entrepreneur would have struggled with. How difficult is it to persuade investors to lend you the money to build a whopping great nuclear power station there?
Investors worry about nuclear power projects because you've got something that's very, very expensive up front, takes a long time to build, so you're paying out money while it's being built, and then you're looking forward up to 60 years, 70 years in the future to think about whether you're going to get the money back on that investment.
It is with pride that I now open Britain's first atomic power station.
Back in the 50s, we found a simple solution to that problem. We got a nationalised company to do it, so the early pioneering days of nuclear were backed by the taxpayer. Indeed, Britain was leading the way. Science was sexy.
More VIPs?
No boffins.
And scientists were like pop stars. As it happens, we did it well, but uniquely expensively. We never managed to get the costs down. And the costs back then partly explain why that nationalised option is not on the table today. Today, we've rejected the simple option of taxpayer finance, but have yet to complete the task of finding a private sector alternative. You see, private companies can't really make nuclear power viable unless they get something from government. In effect, what they want is a certain level of revenue to be guaranteed. So government has to make its mind up.
At the end of this year, we're taking a final investment decision on building this new nuclear power station. We and the government and the regulators and the planning authorities have a lot to do. But in summary, it's moving in the right direction.
What's your nightmare in terms of Hinkley Point C?
As a citizen of the UK, my nightmare is that we muddle around and we don't build what we need to build to keep the lights on. And, you know, it just all takes too long.
In short, if government wants nuclear, it has to make a decision. It can't wait for a Victorian entrepreneur to roll up and deliver it. This is an exact replica of the control room at Hinkley B. Perhaps shows you just how complicated running a nuclear power station can be. Infrastructure, though, can be extremely simple. You can get the private sector to decide on it, to finance it, to deliver it. But when it comes to nuclear, and that's not the only example, it can be anything but simple. And in those cases, there's so much you can delegate to the private sector if you want to, but you can never delegate it all. Oxford economist Dieter Helm is one of Britain's leading experts on infrastructure. He's given a lot of thought to politics, government, private companies, and how we can get a lot more investment in infrastructure.
If we think that private firms are just going to go and produce our infrastructure, well, forget it. It's not going to happen. Okay? They're not interested in worrying about whether they're going to get returns in 20, 30 years' time back on their investment. They're interested in getting the job done, getting the money, getting it in the bank, and their earnings reflecting it. So what we have to do with infrastructure is we have to separate deciding what infrastructure we're going to have from the question of who's going to do the producing, who's going to do the investing. So you decide whether, for example, you want to have an extension to the London Underground. Okay, that's a governmental decision. But it's no good trying to ask the government to actually build it. It's got to go to the private sector to produce the construction skills. But the choice of what sort of underground to build, that's for government. And we need to sort those roles out.
So government is one key to unlocking a new wave of infrastructure investment in the UK. Either finding the money for them or the guarantees that allow the private sector to find the money for them. The interesting news is that if the politics and finance can be sorted, construction itself moves surprisingly fast. To see just how fast, follow me on a boat ride 12 miles off the Kent coast. A coast that is changing very rapidly. It has an almost otherworldly feel. Power stations on stilts, boats on legs, and enormous creature-like machines rising up out of the sea. Welcome to what will soon be the largest offshore wind farm in the world.
I really don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this. As power stations go, you have to say it has a certain beauty about it, doesn't it? Laid out in endless lines and a very tidy grid. But you know, it's very hard to get a sense of perspective out here. If you look at them in the distance, they look so slim, so elegant, an occasional glint of the reflection of the sun. It's when you get right up close you see that it's not so much slim as just extremely tall. I've sort of lost my sense of scale somehow.
These are very big turbines. The diameter of our blades is slightly bigger than the London Eye, and the tip is about 150 metres above the sea level, so they're large.
These turbines are expensive. The government didn't pay for them directly, but set up a mechanism to ensure we'll pay for them on our fuel bills. You may like that or loathe it, but the speed these turbines go up shows just how quickly the infrastructure industry does things these days when it has the incentive to do so.
How quickly can you get wind turbines up?
Once we're up and running, they go in fairly quickly. From start to finish, we can put a foundation in 2 days, and we can erect a turbine which comes in 7 components in 24 hours.
Is that quick?
Yeah.
It's a pretty calm day today here, but we're rocking around quite a lot. Is the weather an issue for you?
When the sea state gets too rough, the waves get too high, the wind's too forceful, we can't work. And unfortunately, being in a windy area, that's why they put the wind farm here,
I suppose so.
we suffer quite badly.
When phase 1 is complete, there'll be 175 separate turbines, 175 London Eyes, covering an area of 100 square kilometres. It'll have about half the capacity of Hinkley B nuclear power station. And it's not alone in this part of the sea.
It's a very busy area. We've got the Thanet offshore wind farm, Kentish Flats off of Whitstable, and then going round towards the Essex coast, you've got Greater Gabbard, Gunfleet Sands, and of course the biggest under construction at the moment, which is London Array.
Wind farms will hardly solve all our energy needs, but the speed at which the coastline of Britain has changed show what can happen if you want it to.
Some of us love all this engineering, and if you want more of it, you've reason to be optimistic because we're better placed to deliver it than we have been since Victorian times. We're tantalisingly close to that infrastructure boom. And there's another reason to be optimistic as well, because we've got one thing the Victorians didn't have: modern technology. And that can help us use our infrastructure more effectively. So quite apart from building more, we can make our assets sweat. We may live in an era of sat-navs, GPS, mobile telecoms, but I've come back 109 years. This signal box in Shrewsbury was built back then to control the trains coming in and out of the busy station behind me. The surprising, and perhaps alarming thing, is that it still does. These levers direct trains and allow many of them to run down the same track without hitting each other. We can be smarter than this now, but they did do it pretty well back then, just after Queen Victoria died. So what are the levers doing then?
Right, well, the different coloured levers tell you what's what. The white levers are the levers that aren't in use anymore, that once were. The black levers work the points. The blue levers are facing point locks.
Right.
The red levers, they're the signals.
Gotcha. Now, how physically hard is it to pull these?
It all depends on how far from the signal box the equipment is,
right,
on how heavy they are. See, this one wouldn't be too bad because it's only, what, 50 yards that way. 24, on the other hand, is over on the viaduct there, a good half a mile away. That one takes some pulling.
Does it?
If I press the plunger, you can try and get that lever back in the frame.
Oh, that's perfectly easy.
And then
very satisfying click at the end.
That's
as well.
it.
Can I do this one?
Next, that one next, yes, number 70.
Oh, that one almost went on its own.
And that one will be a
And
bit
then number
harder.
71. Is this a harder one? Yeah, that's a bit harder.
If you struggle, I can do it for you.
But no, I should be able to do it. But that's not meant to be like that. There's surely some mistake.
Let's have a look. Let's have a look.
That can't be right.
You have to sort of, this is what I do. I put it back. There you are. Perhaps I should have done that one with you, really. Right, so now what we're going to do now...
I didn't realise that was really quite... That's ridiculous.
No. The problem is now it's showing wrong.
Replacing this old technology by investing in new has the potential to give us extra capacity on the old railway infrastructure.
When this signal box was built, the population of the UK was about 38 million. It's obviously gone up a little since then, putting more pressure on our infrastructure. One of the things we've seen is we've got to get it to work harder, which in train terms means having the trains closer together. So just as we've moved into an era of video games away from toy trains, we've moved into an era of new signalling systems that are designed to accommodate that. And guess what? You don't have to go far from here to find one. Just up there.
Buried among the tracks on this sleepy and historic Cambrian line in Wales lurks the world's most advanced signalling system, more advanced even than the one used on High Speed 1. This is the only one in the UK, a pilot line, while they iron out the numerous complications. The eventual plan is to apply it far more widely. Called ERTMS, it replaces traditional railway signals with wireless technology and onboard computers. Trackside signals will be a thing of the past. The headquarters of this test zone are here at the picturesque station of Machynlleth in mid-Wales. It's where the trains get their brains.
I've never been under a train before, and you won't be surprised to hear there's actually a lot under here, and bits like the wheels look really, really big. But this is part of the new signalling system, retrofitted on these trains. This is like a giant smart card reader, and then on the tracks you have the smart cards. So this picks up the information as to where the train is.